With the news of new Silent Hill games finally on the way, the cult fans of the franchise have really come out with their mixed reactions based on sort of the future of Silent Hill. And honestly, I'm one of them. I know you've probably seen this discussion beaten to death by now about Bloober Team's involvement with Silent Hill 2 Remake and about just how possible it is that they're going to do the original any kind of justice. I wanted to make a video today to talk about why I'm not necessarily that worried, and what, from my perspective, a lot of the cult fans of the franchise are worried about particularly. But I first want to start off by not sugarcoating it. This game is important to a lot of us, and I know there is a lot of folks who are seeing the remake footage right now and thinking, hey, you know, what's the problem here? And that's because Silent Hill 2 is special, and it was intricately made by folks who put a particular brand of heart into it that is very difficult to replicate. It's kind of hard to put your finger on because there's this special sauce that Silent Hill 2 has from back in those days that is just so iconic, and for reasons that maybe folks who were born in the 90s may not understand particularly. Every single shot, every texture, every line of dialogue had a particular reason behind it was. And I have a feeling that when Silent Hill 2 Remake finally launches, and maybe a lot sooner than we think compared to, or at least as opposed to what Bloober Team is actually telling us, that the game is in the final steps of production, there's going to be a pretty big dichotomy about this, and there's going to be a lot of folks from the previous generation and PlayStation 2 players who enjoyed the original that don't understand why the new wave of gamers are enjoying Silent Hill 2 Remake, and I really worry that that set of folks is going to be like the three fanboys that were very rabid towards Konami in their sort of legendary breakdown of all of the Silent Hill games, and telling these new players why they shouldn't be enjoying Silent Hill 2 Remake based on the original game, and I'm trying so very hard not to be one of those people. But alternatively, that's going to be true for the new players who never experienced the original. They're going to look at us and say, hey, I don't know why you don't like this game. Why is it that you enjoy janky combat? Why is it that you enjoy an annoying camera that can't quite get behind you and cooperate? Why is it that you enjoy dialogue that seems kind of like it was delivered in a B movie? Why is that so special to you? I just don't understand why it would need to be that divisive. So of course, the title is alluding to why I'm not necessarily worried about Bloober Team and Silent Hill 2 Remake. And it's because, well, first, I'm going to just have to bite down and get over myself. A remake is a remake. I remember when Final Fantasy VII Remake was coming, and I was first off disgusted with the fact that we even needed 3 games at all. I absolutely adore the 7th game on the PlayStation 1 back in the day, and there were so many people that actually played that hadn't experienced it the way that I did. Mike Laws immediately wanted to come out and say, hey, new players, how dare you enjoy this new game? This is not correct. This is not how this is supposed to be. But then I played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I had a change of heart. I actually really liked it. Sure, there's things that I would do differently. I'm not even that mad that it's going to take 3 games to really fill out the entirety of the story. But for all intents and purposes, as mad as we are at Square Enix for sort of mistreating Final Fantasy for as long as they did a good job. And more or less, we were kind of just as mad at Konami for all of those years for mistreating Silent Hill the way that they did. So maybe the same is true here. Now, when it comes to Bloober Team, I am fully aware, and of course, I've never really played any of their games. I do kind of want to play the medium now that they're remaking Silent Hill 2, so I can have a dog in the fight when it comes to the debate about how they treat serious themes and to what seriousness and well care that they adopt to those themes, because that's really important to the actual story delivery for Silent Hill 2. If they mess that up, all bets are off. But what I am seeing from my perspective on Bloober Team games is that they are perfectly capable of delivering, at least technology and artistic wise, they are perfectly competent. Take a moment and rewind, and some of us players who are really Silent Hill purists, and look at Silent Hill Homecoming, look at Vatra Games and Double Helix when it came to Homecoming and Downpour. Those games were not the quality that we expected for the Silent Hill games for Silent Hill 1 through 4. They just weren't. And even design-wise and technology-wise and artistically, maybe those games didn't really rise up then either. They weren't particularly great-looking games. I do remember liking how Downpour looked more than Homecoming. But if I remember correctly, and I'm not fully sure, I think Downpour specifically ran on Unreal Engine 3, and I don't believe that they used that tech as good as they could have, especially as well as Epic Games does. I remember thinking to myself that this isn't quite the Silent Hill that I want, but I don't hate it either. It's nothing that I would ever want to come back to necessarily, unless, Konami released the games on PC and on Steam. Finally, Homecoming is, Downpour is not. Silent Hill 2 and 3 still are not there. Boggles my mind because there are PC versions that do exist for those games, and they're just leaving that money on the table, which seems odd to me for Konami because I know they love money. Who doesn't, right? But I'm kind of rooting for Bloober because here's the thing. If I was in Bloober's shoes right now, first off, I would be listening to the Silent Hill community and being fully open to the criticisms that they're getting on how poorly they handle serious subjects like mental illness, and then really hunkering down with that feedback and saying, you know what, we're going to do this right. In my previous video, one of my discussion points was that it seems that Konami has a really short leash on Bloober Team when it comes to changes and additions to the game. So I'm thinking, as long as they don't take liberties with the story, I am perfectly fine with that. But here's the thing, and here's my curveball, and here's where a lot of Silent Hill fans might really be like, no, never, ever. If you're a Silent Hill 2 fan or a Silent Hill fan in general, you've probably played the Dead Space games too. And as you know, here around the corner, I believe in January, a remake of the first Dead Space is coming up. Of course, all of us hate Electronic Arts and how they handled Visceral Games and the franchise when it came to the third game. And I remember thinking first, because I just recently played Dead Space 1 all the way through, I am playing Dead Space 2, which is the footage you're seeing now. And I'm thinking to myself, why did Dead Space need to be remade? We could have just gotten a remaster and I would have been happy with that. But then I read that they're actually going through and they're adding a bunch of new stuff to the Ishimura, right? They're making it fully explorable. They're making it to where the tram isn't necessarily the way that you navigate the ship anymore. They're adding a bunch of aspects when it comes to zero-G navigation and things like that, which really started with Dead Space 2. I'm all for that, and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? If you're going to stick to the source material religiously but expand upon it, go nuts. Put the whole town of Silent Hill in there and just let me roam around and let me experience some of the stories that you could maybe drip in the lore with the rest of the town as it sort of works with James and works with Eddie. I wouldn't mind seeing like Bloober's take on Eddie's story because, Eddie is not there the whole time, right? Maybe that would be a cool like expansion to be like, you know what, here I'm going to show you Silent Hill 2 from Eddie's perspective. I'm going to show you Silent Hill 2 from Angela's perspective. I'm going to show you Silent Hill 2 from Maria's perspective. I believe there was a DLC or an expansion released for Silent Hill 2. I think it was Born from a Wish or something like that they called it. Go to town. Just don't harm the base material for the game, right? The reason why, maybe touch it up a little bit about how it's delivered, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Also, another reason I'm not particularly worried is that Masahiro Ito is involved, right? If you know Masahiro Ito and you've seen his tweets over the years, you know that he's on our side when it comes to the authenticity of Silent Hill, right? Nobody has been as critical, especially who helped make the game, as Masahiro Ito. So I'm sort of excited to see just how sort of hard-edged he is, in working with Bloober and saying, hey, no, this is not how this works. It should be this way. Hey, here's why we did this thing originally, and this is why it should stay. I think it would be better served as an actual producer and, on top of being the artist and really being the muscle there that says, hey, no, Bloober, you can't do that. Here's why. And I think without knowing what's going on behind closed doors at Bloober Team, maybe that's what's actually happening. I can't say for sure. But the ultimate reason for why I'm not worried that much, it really comes down to this. Silent Hill 2 deserves to perpetually exist, and so does Silent Hill. We're not always going to love it. We might even hate it sometimes. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm pretty sure just by looking at Ascension that it's just going to be nothing that I'm willing to participate that deeply into, and maybe it's just not my thing. I'm fine with that. I, at the end of the day, know that Silent Hill Forte, or F, or whatever we're calling it, looks fantastic, even though it doesn't take place in the actual town. I'm happy with that. I know Silent Hill 2 is looking good. There are some things I would maybe change about it or maybe amend a little bit. Maybe Bloober has taken that feedback already. And Townfall really has my interest. I'm really excited to see some short stories sort of in the way of like Love, Death, and Robots, or, you know, Black Mirror and the sort of the handling, or like the Animatrix for Silent Hill, right? These really iconic short stories, and putting them together, letting some of the studios, and here's the other benefit with Townfall, right? This is sort of Konami fishing for probably the next best developer to handle the studio. Maybe any one of those little short stories are really good, and Konami's like, you know what? We want you to handle the next mainline Silent Hill because your project was so well received. Seems like kind of a long play to me on how Konami's handling that. What do you think? Listen, I am super happy that Silent Hill is even back. There's a couple of things that I wish they could do a little bit better. First off, put Silent Hill 2 and 3, the classics, on Steam already. Re-release the HD collection, but do some actual work to it to make sure that it's correct and right, and the glitches are fixed, and it's in a perfect shape for the other consoles, right? Do us that favor, so that at the end of the day, the people who are telling us, well, you don't like the remake, go back and play the original, and I could be like, fine, and slam the door and enjoy my old school Silent Hill while the new wave of players are enjoying the remake. I want that to exist. I want that to be a thing. I'm happy for everybody involved. And at the end of the day, if Silent Hill 2 remake fails, it'll be a failure because Konami and Bloober mishandled it. But if they stick with the source material and they get it right and they realize why Silent Hill 2 was so popular, that they'll see some success, and we can be happy, and maybe they'll tackle Silent Hill 3 next. Personally, Silent Hill 3, absolutely my favorite one out of the franchise still. The most scary, the most twisted. I absolutely love it. Thank you for sitting here and listening to my rant as I'm talking about why I may or may not be worried about Silent Hill Remake. We'd love to see you in the future for more Silent Hill coverage and, of course, all things video games. Comment down below what you are hoping for Silent Hill 2 Remake, and I will see you in the next one.